Hello, lovely people. So ever since I started on YouTube, one of the YouTubers that you gorgeous people have been asking me to collab with over and over again is the wonderful Molly Burke. And I'm very pleased to say it's happened. We actually managed to get together, kind of, not really, because obviously it's COVID times and so no one can go near each other. Also, we're in different countries anyway, so this is probably how we'd have collabed even without COVID. So let's just pretend COVID's not a thing for the entirety of this video and say that it was just the Atlantic Ocean that kept us apart. Molly is an amazing OG YouTuber who also happens to be disabled. Molly and I have met twice before, super briefly, at YouTube events. So it was really lovely to actually get the chance to have a proper chat with her. There's another part of this conversation which you can go and watch on Molly's channel. In this part of the conversation, we just had a really good talk about what it was like to develop disabilities as we aged. I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed making it. I'm going to put all of the links to all of Molly's social medias down in the description. Please go and follow her across all of her platforms if you haven't already. And if you've just come over from Molly's channel, hi, lovely to meet you. I'm Jessica. Please subscribe to my channel too, which you can do. There's a little button down there, it's red. Yeah, hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me today, Molly.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you some more. I could have talked to you for hours on my channel, and so I'm really excited that we get to keep talking.
I absolutely love, by the way, that it seems like we're just such fashion divas that we had to completely change our outfits for the next video.
And hair and makeup, I will add.
Yeah, that's it. It's completely not a different day. So for the two people in my audience who don't know you, Molly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi to those two people. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for assuming I'm so relevant. I appreciate that. I'm Molly Burke. I am a YouTuber and I happen to be blind. I lost most of my vision when I was 14 years old. I make content about everything really, just life as a blind woman, which includes things about blindness, but also includes things that completely have nothing to do with blindness, because guess what? I'm actually just a human and I love fashion and travel when we're not in, the situation that we're all in. I have an adorable kitten, a guide dog, and we just have a lot of fun.
So the common view of any kind of disability, I've always found, generally comes from people who haven't had any direct contact with people who have disabilities. And it's always that you were just born straight disabled, that's it, you're born with your disability, it never changes. But that wasn't the case for me, and I don't think that was the case for you either, right? So I was born with genetic disabilities, but at the time I was just this kind of, seemed quite sickly, and I'd get injured a lot and I'd be a bit ill, and no one really knew what was up with me. And it wasn't until much later on that I started to lose my hearing, and I lost my vision in one eye, and I was diagnosed with having a neurological condition and a connective tissue disorder. And for you, I think you also went on a journey from being able to see to being able not to see, right?
Exactly, yeah. I had a similar journey of, getting one diagnosis and thinking that was it, and then getting another diagnosis, and that whole journey. Because
for me, when I was very little, I wasn't able to hear perfectly, but then I had grommets, and I think I had another kind of operation when I was young, and I could hear pretty well from the ages from 5 to about 15. So I remember everything, the Spice Girls repertoire really, really well. So all Spice Girls songs.
That's a blessing.
They live in my head forever. And then
they live in our heads and our hearts forever for all of us from the 90s.
They do. But then after that, I started to lose my hearing, and it was really weird because to start with, I didn't realize what was going on. Thought like I was kind of disappearing almost because I couldn't hear what was going on around me. I thought that it was me, like I was slipping backwards. How did you experience losing your vision?
So from the time I was 6 months old, it was obvious that something was wrong. Basically, my head was constantly shaking. So I was constantly kind of like bobbling or nodding my head, like a human bobblehead, if you will. So I was taken to a neurologist, a brain specialist at Sick Kids Hospital. They did a bunch of MRIs and tests and scans. Something like that is a sign of more severe things like potentially brain cancer. And thankfully I wasn't diagnosed with that. I was diagnosed with spasmodic Newtons, which at the time they told my family 1 in a million babies are born with, and that I would grow out of it. So literally 1 in a million, very proud of that. And well unfortunately, eventually my head stopped shaking, but my eyes continued to shake, and they weren't really facing the same direction as each other. And so at that point, they took me back to Sick Kids Hospital, but to ophthalmology, which is the eye specialist. And then I was diagnosed with strabismus, which is more commonly referred to as a lazy eye, where your eyes face in different directions because the muscles aren't tight enough to hold the eye straight, and nystagmus, which is what causes my eyes to shake. They started patching me, which is how you treat a lazy eye. It's the first step to treating strabismus. And they realized that when they did that, all of a sudden I started like reaching for things and missing. They started noticing that I was like super clingy at night. I actually started vocalizing like, I can't see. And people were like, no, of course you can see, right? Because able-bodied people who have never interacted with blind people, like you said, have this idea that like it's all or nothing. At nighttime, I would say like, oh, I can't see that. My neighbor would be like, no, I know you can't see the same as you can during the day, but you can still see the outline of things. And I was like, no, I can't. And so all of these like little things started building up. I ended up getting surgery to correct the strabismus, and they continued to do more and more hunting. And what made my diagnosis complicated is I really do have all of these things. They weren't misdiagnoses. These were real things that I have. All of these diagnoses don't necessarily generally go together. They finally got that retinitis pigmentosa diagnosis, or RP. The first sign of RP is going blind at night. And so when I was saying I can't see, when it was dark out and when I was being really clingy at night, it wasn't just a childhood fear of the dark. I really couldn't see. When you're young and you don't have the ability to hear or to see the way other people do, you don't know that because it's your normal. It's the only reality you know. Tell people the full extent of how much you're not hearing or how much you're not seeing because you yourself don't know.
And of course, it's so hard when you are quite young to be your own advocate, to stand up to an adult, because quite often you're told, you've got to be very polite to adults and you've got to do what you're told to do. And if an adult tells you something, then that must be the truth. And we're kind of taught that even in the way that we are taught at school, where the teacher is so often giving us the information and there's no way that we can come back with information that is also correct. When they go to an adult and say, I am having this problem, and someone's like, no, it's fine. So I would be like, I'm injured again, I'm ill. And they're like, this is hilarious, Jessica. This is the 5th time this week you've injured yourself. Did you ever experience something like that?
Well, when you were talking about teachers and the role that they play in our lives as young people, it sparked something in me. A few months before my diagnosis of RP, my main disease that took my vision, the school system thought I had multiple learning disabilities because I wasn't reading like the other kids. I wasn't writing like the other kids. Ultimately, we're very lucky that one of my teachers went to my parents and said, I know that everybody thinks she has learning disabilities. I think she can't see. And my parents were like, we've been to Sick Kids so many times. She's had surgery. We've had the diagnosis. She has glasses that are supposed to help her. She was like, I know, but I think you need to bring her one more time.
And how old were you at this age?
4 years old. A lot of teachers wouldn't have taken that amount of care or time or effort or paid that much attention to one student of 30, or even maybe be brave enough to say that to a parent. But my family is so lucky she did, because that is what pushed my family to take me and push the doctors to continue to explore. And that's what ultimately led to my final diagnosis. When I was tested for a learning disability, I wasn't properly tested by somebody who knew how to test a blind student. So that led me to being misdiagnosed as learning disabled and then being retested many years later at a new school who was like, I know she has learning disabilities on her record. She shows no signs of learning disabilities that we can see, so we'd like to retest her. And they brought in a specialist who was the only person in the province who was specialized past learning disabilities in blind students. And she tested me, and I absolutely did not have learning disabilities. So it's been, it was a really interesting journey throughout my education. Teachers played multiple roles in both helping my diagnosis and hurting my diagnosis.
I wanted to ask you, and I know that you were quite young, so this might not apply, but did you at the time, and do you now, feel any kind of anxiety when it comes to symptoms and continuing and things changing?
I have PTSD, which I mentioned in my video, and my PTSD has a number of triggers, but a big one is medical stuff. I think when you're very young and you go through a lot medically from the time you're a young child, it can go one of two ways. You either become immune to it or you develop a lot of anxiety and fear around it. That's the direction my brain took it. Like I had to get a COVID test and that was a full-blown meltdown. I was shaking, I was crying, I was in a ball, I was hyperventilating. And I knew, and I was communicating to the nurse that I understood this was irrational and that this is a very simple test and that she performs this regularly on people. But for me, because of my medical trauma, it triggered a PTSD attack. And when I have those, I'm aware that they're not always rational. But that's not what PTSD is. It doesn't, your brain takes trauma and like stores it in weird places and does weird things with it. And I remember being in an Uber a few years ago, and the woman driving me was telling me that her daughter had cancer when she was young. She now also, as a teen, has a lot of medical phobia. And she said, you know, I just wish that the doctors had been honest with my child when things were gonna hurt. They don't understand because now she doesn't believe anybody when they say it won't hurt. And I'm very similar. Like, I know you're telling me it's just a quick nasal swab, but there's a lot of things that I've been told. And on top of that, like, I can't see, right? So like, I can't see, they can't show me, look, it's just a little swab. And so that adds an extra layer for me.
I completely get that. I find if it comes to my body and my symptoms and my medical things, and it's like, oh, I dislocated a finger, and I'm so unbothered by it. But if I'm in a medical setting, if anything feels out of my control, it is such a heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, really difficult thing for me. And then it has that lasting effect of being like, I was lied to. It was not fine. Just say, it's okay. We know it's not going to be great, but just say. But God, I hadn't thought about something like a COVID swab. Of course, you can't touch it because then it's not sterile anymore.
And they can't, you don't want to waste them either. They can't just show me one and I'll contaminate it and they use another. You don't want to waste stuff. I'll take the moment to clear my throat as well.
I know, got a bit emotional. On a bit of a different track, do you have people who come up to you with amazing cures? What do you say to them?
So many. You have no idea. Of course, and I loved that you mentioned this in your You Did an Ableism video. I definitely get the like, can I pray for your healing? I personally find that offensive. I don't like when people ask me that, and I recognize it comes from like a really good, loving, caring place. But when a stranger asks, hey, can I ask God to fix you? I think we could all see why that would be offensive. Right? Like you would never go up to a stranger who's overweight and be like, could I pray that God makes you skinny? We can all clearly see that that's like inappropriate and offensive. But I think when you frame it when it comes to race or body type or sexuality or gender identity, it's totally not okay. But the moment it's about disability, like, oh, it's fine. I've had people tell me that like they know the doctor who will cure me. And I'm like, no, you don't, because he doesn't exist. She doesn't exist. That's not a real person. People tell me that I should see a nutritionist or a naturopath. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I actually do see a nutritionist and a naturopath, and I really believe in those things, and they play a vital role in my life, but not to cure my vision because my retina is dead and gone. Unfortunately, there's no amount of fish oil in the world that's going to revive these retinas.
God bless fish oil. Like, if it could actually do what people think it can do. Now, you must also have something that I get quite a lot when I meet people in real life, but also online, where people say, oh, you're not really ... because, and I get, you can't really be deaf because you don't sound deaf, as if somehow the voice and the way I speak has any impact on how much I can hear. How do you deal with those, and how does it make you feel?
I get a lot of, you're too pretty to be blind, or you don't look blind. That's offensive on multiple levels. It's offensive because by complimenting me, you're being rude about the rest of my community. By saying like, I'm too pretty to be blind, you're saying, oh, I think blind people are ugly, so you can't be one because you're pretty. And that's just so rude. Like, it's so offensive. Like, those are my people. That is my community. And there are so many beautiful people in the community, inside and out. So for you to belittle them like that, I don't think that's a compliment. You're offending my community.
Also, as if being pretty is the one thing that you should strive for in life.
Exactly. And also, it's one of those things where it's like, you're complimenting me while invalidating me. And that's also not okay.
So how do you deal with online comments as well?
You know, I think when I started on YouTube, the disability community didn't really exist online yet. Nobody had seen us before, you know, like nobody had seen the disabled creatures in real life. And so I think I faced a lot more of the like, she's faking it. But now that we have so much more representation, that there's so many more of us showing that disability doesn't actually look a certain way, I feel like people are more likely to be believed when they find new disabled creators. So it was definitely very hard at the beginning for many, many years, and it's gotten a lot easier. And in part, because I've just made so many videos debunking anything you could possibly try to call me out for. Although even today, like I'm posting a video, I went to go say I could see that the little boy, and I like stopped myself and I went, I could tell, and I changed my word, but you could hear in the edit that I almost said C. And I'm like, oh, I know there's still gonna be people who are like, she almost said C, but then she stopped herself. And it's like, well, I stopped myself because of you guys, not because, like, I would use that word, and it's like you, right? We often say, oh, I heard about XYZ.
I was just thinking how
when we read about it
myself from doing that. You just don't need that drama. Even in the years that I've been on YouTube, which is not as long as you are of course an OG. We owe a lot to you, Molly. I've seen a change as well, just in the way that people kind of absorb information, and also the language. I didn't have the language even to describe myself, my life, and what I was going through. And I didn't even know that chronic illness was a term until I started posting on YouTube and on Instagram and kind of found the chronic illness community. And that has been so rewarding for me and such a big lifeline. And I just think it's one thing we don't talk about enough when it comes to social media, are the real benefits of it. When I was a teenager, I was bedbound and I didn't have a lot of friends and I didn't really have anyone to connect with who was like me. I couldn't really watch TV and see anyone who was like me, and we still can't. I mean, disabled people in the UK, right, are 20% of the population, but we're only 5% of characters on TV.
Well, that's bigger than the States. We're less than 2% in the States on TV. So I always say the same. Like, I feel like people always poo-poo social media and the internet as this bad negative thing, which is why I always say to people, you give power with a follow. Follow really strategically. Follow really thoughtfully. Not only are you giving power to the people that you follow, but you're giving them power in your own life to influence you. And if you're scrolling on Instagram and you're seeing somebody who's consistently making you feel bad about yourself or your life, unfollow them. I also think it's important to spotlight the fact that for many people who don't have a community in their physical space around them, for whatever reason, there is a community online for them. And I guess I have a question for you now. I wonder if you ever feel pressure to represent the community as a whole. I don't want to misrepresent a community when so few people have a big microphone, but also I can only represent who I am. And so it gets really hard at times.
I completely understand that feeling, especially when it comes to things like brands, or if you're booked to do a talk and you're wanting me now to speak for absolutely everyone. But personally, I don't necessarily feel that pressure. I kind of just want to be as authentically myself as I can. And I know that I'm not everyone's first choice necessarily all the time. I'm a bit kooky. I'm a little bit odd, a little bit eccentric. I've been told that my whole life. It's all right.
Me too, girl. I relate.
I just want to be the best version of me. And if other people can find something within that speaks to them, then that's wonderful. If some people don't, then that's okay.
That's how I started. And I think the bigger you get, the more pressure, the more eyes that are on you, the more people are going to try to mold you. I'm trying to let that go and to just continue on the path of being authentically myself and representing those who feel represented by me.
So, hey, anyone watching right now who isn't already subscribed to Molly, but is seeing something rather wonderful in her and would very much like to, I suggest that you do that right now, because down in the description, I will of course have all of Molly's socials.
Thank you, Jessica. And if you're here from my channel, please subscribe to Jessica. She's so freaking fun. Honestly, like the level of funny that I could only aspire to one day reach, and the level of style that I could only one day aspire to reach.
You are too sweet. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.